Hey everyone, welcome back to Williamson Ridge Outdoors. Today we've got a little comparison going on. We're actually going to compare the old echo-58V brushless battery chainsaw to the new echoeforce DCS-5000 56V battery chainsaw. So there's a few upfront differences about these. One, the new one is a 56V and the old one is actually a 58V. So it seems like that they may have downgraded whenever you think going to a 56V, a little bit less voltage than what the old one was, but their battery is actually a 5 amp hour battery for this one, and the biggest one you could get for the 58V was actually a 4 amp hour battery. So let's talk about some of the things that actually are different on these two saws and kind of compare them a little bit. We'll go through some of the features and then we'll actually run them through some test cuts and see which one actually cuts faster. So a couple of the obvious differences. One, the bar on the new version is actually got an 18-inch bar on it instead of like the old having a 16-inch. Also, like I said, the new one is a 56V, the old one is a 58. And if you kind of look at the old 58V, this one's just kind of more blocky looking, like it's just one big housing. Whereas this one, they've kind of tapered it down back here in the back. They're both kind of about the same width up here in the front, but then this one kind of stays, the old one kind of stays a little fatter all the way back, where this one kind of slims down a little bit. They both have very similar handles. Chain brakes work exactly the same. So the new version has captured nuts on the bar clamp. The old version does not. It's got separate nuts that you have to keep track of those whenever you take this thing loose. Not to mention, this actually has the chain adjuster right here on the bar clamp instead of on the saw. So this way seems to me, I don't know, it just seems a little cheaper way to do it, because any of your bar tension and pressure that the bar is going to have, it's going to be on this plastic cover. Where this one, it just has a hole in it, and the actual adjustment is here built into the saw. So this is much more like a professional grade. Now, looking at the inside of these, they're actually very similar. Now the cover on the 56V has a little tab right here that you've got to put the back end of the cover on first. And then it just goes right into place. In order to put the cover back on the 58V, you've got to make sure that your chain adjustment lines up with the hole in the bar in your chain before you can get it to get seated fully on there. And you may have to adjust it back and forth a little bit if you change your chain or something like that in order to get it to fit back on. They both have the translucent bar oil tanks on them. As you're using your battery, you can see that level going down. But some of the feature differences in just the creature comforts are things like the oil cap itself. For instance, this one right here, if you tighten that too much, it's kind of tough to get that to come loose. It does have a little slot right here in it that you can take your scrunch and be able to turn it loose. On the new 56V version, it's completely toolless. It's actually got this lever on here that you flip, and then that gives you tons of leverage to be able to take the oil cap loose. They both have tool storage on the bottom side where you can put your scrunch in there and store it. The scrunch that comes with the 58V version is actually much longer than the 56. That one's actually a little tough to get that in there. It's got rubber pads here that kind of squeeze together, so as you're putting that in, it's got to squeeze in between those rubber pads. The 56V version actually has metal springs in it, so it just pops right into place. So another thing too, battery comparison. This is your old 58V and your 56. They're actually pretty comparable, but I actually think that the old 58V is a little bit more compact. It's perfectly square, whereas the 56, you know, kind of has a little bit of curved off edges, and then you've got this whole section here that your battery connections and stuff are at. So another major difference in these are the bucking spikes. They're plastic on the old 58V version, and then on the new 56, they are steel. So you don't have to worry about these things wearing out on you. They're not real aggressive, you know, but they are metal, so you don't have to worry about really, you know, wearing out the front of the plastic on your saw. whereas this one over time, there's no doubt that that plastic will wear. The points will kind of wear off the edges. Also, another big difference is the chain and the bar itself. Of course, the old 58 is a 16-inch bar and chain, but it has a 43 thousandths wide 3/8 low profile chain on it, whereas this chain on the 56 volt is very similar, but it's actually 18-inch and it's a 50 thousandths wide 3/8 low profile. So the next thing we're going to look at here is actually the weight of the saw. The old 58 volt version, and you can see the scale is zeroed out. So the old 58, and this is with the battery, and the bar oil is full. So we got 14 pounds, 12.5 ounces. The new 56 volt version, again, it's full of oil. The battery's in it. 14 pounds, 8.9 ounces. So we're going to start with the old 58 volt version. That old 58 volt version actually does really well. So I did want to mention too that the batteries are both fully charged and they both have new chains on them. So let's jump in there and go to the 56 volt and see how it does. So I don't know what the times are on that. The 56 volt actually felt a little bit faster. It should be taking a little bit bigger chunks out of the wood because that saw kerf, it's got a 50 thousandths chain on it versus that 43 thousandths on the 58 volt version. Now, I was forcing these to pretty much their extent because I wanted to kind of push them to their max without stalling them out just to get the fastest cutting speed that I could. So what I'm going to do now is actually run another test. So we're going to do 3 more cuts. Just the weight of the saw itself, I'm not going to put any pressure on it. I'm just going to stabilize the saw from the back and just let it fall through the wood. This is the 58 volt. Now the 56 volt. That test right there is actually really hard to do because the 58 volt, it seems like that it doesn't want to fall through the wood. It kind of binds up a little bit, at least in this big of wood. Now, I chose to do a piece of wood this big because I knew this would be really taxing on the batteries and the motors and see how well they hold up due to heat. After this, you know, we've run these 2 little speed tests, and now what I'm going to do is actually run these all the way to dead just keep slabbing off pieces here. So as of right now, our 58 volt has got 2 bars, and the 56 volt is still at 3. So I'm actually pretty impressed with that, but it does kind of make sense because the 58 volt is a 4 amp hour battery and the 56 volt is a 5 amp hour, so it does have a little bit more capacity in the battery. So I think overall though, I think that 56 volt is beating out the 58. I don't have a timer here with me. I'm going to put a timer up on the screen as I'm cutting through these pieces. And one thing I did notice, the 58 volt version, it seemed to be a little smoother going through the log, but it didn't seem like it wanted to go. It just seemed like it kind of wanted to hang up, and I had to kind of work it and do that. And then the finished cut of it actually was a lot rougher. It actually was kind of wavy in and out. The 56 volt actually would pull its way through on its own, and I didn't really even have to help it. It didn't seem like it wanted to bind up or anything, but it was rougher. It seemed like it was grabbing and kind of vibrating and shaking a little bit more. So with all that, let's continue our testing. Let's jump in here. I'm going to run both of these batteries dead. I'm just going to keep sawing off pieces on this log. I don't think it'll take all that much time really to kill the batteries because this is such a big log. But then I'm going to go through and count and see how many slabs each saw was able to cut off. All right, that's it right there. The battery shows 1 bar on it. But that's dead for the 58 volt. The battery's kind of lukewarm. It's not hot by no means. So now we're going to run the 56 volt and run it until it goes dead and see how long that takes and how many cuts we get. Ran into another cut that was already in that log, so that one we're going to call a half a cut. Well, it just shut off. It shows on the battery that we've still got 2 bars. The battery doesn't really feel hot, it's just barely warm. So I'm going to assume that that is the end of the battery, even though it'll start up and run, but as soon as you put pressure on it, it shuts off. The battery shows 1 bar on it. The first time I used that saw, it actually ran the battery all the way down to where it had no bars left on it at all. None of the lights would light up on the battery. I kind of was shocked that it quit on me about halfway through the battery, because I've actually had some other saws in the past that I was really disappointed with, that the batteries would actually get warm and the battery would shut the saw off or shut the battery down to keep from harming the battery. I hope this one is really not doing that, because that's going to be really disappointing in this new 56 volt battery. The 58 volt version, as you've seen, I ran it from full charge to dead. It was perfectly fine. It didn't get hot on me. It was just barely warm. 56 volt was just starting to warm up a little bit whenever it shut off the first time, and then it ran some more. And so I'm, you know, like I say, I'm kind of disappointed with that a little bit. But overall, I like the features and the saw better, and I like the power of the saw better, and it seems like it does cut faster. I'm not sure that it cut more rounds than what the 58 volt did. We'll have to go back and look at the video and actually count those up, because that 58 volt, it held its own. It actually done really good. So there you have it. Old versus new. They actually seem to be pretty comparable. It seems like the 58 actually holds its own in the runtime. And I don't know if it's maybe the 43,000s chain has a lot less drag on it than what the 50,000s, but it seems like the 50,000s pulls more wood, you know, and it cuts more. So I kind of have to weigh up the differences. We're going to look at the times, and I'll post all that stuff. But just from trying them out, I like the balance of the 56 volt. I actually like the feel of the 58 because it's actually really smooth feeling. Even whenever you're cutting the wood, you know, it just seems like the motor and the chain and everything runs smooth. But the 56, again, it has a bigger chain on it, so that might be part of it. You're feeling a little bit more of that vibration. I think I said in a previous video that I was calling this an upgrade because of the price, but actually the price of this one was $299, and I'm pretty sure whenever I bought the 58 volt it was either $329 or $339. So if I had to pick a winner today, I believe I would go with the 56 volt, but I actually like both of them really well. So thanks for following along with the video today. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you have any questions or anything, leave them in the comments below. Also, if you'd like to see some other tests between these two saws, leave them in the comments below. Let me know what you'd like to see. I really appreciate you considering subscribing to the channel. And if you do, make sure to hit that little bell icon so you'll get notifications whenever I upload new videos. And we'll see you on the next one.